Is fear of failure keeping you stuck in your fitness journey? Today, I'm going to show you how to overcome this fear and, more importantly, how you can start making progress again. Now, for those of you who don't know, my name is Brian Pickowitz. I'm one of the head coaches and co-founders here at the Fitness Project, where we focus on building fit and healthy leaders. Now, every day I talk to business leaders, whether they're business owners, they're executives, they're managers, they're people who have a lot of responsibility on their plate. And the challenge for a lot of these people is that they have conquered their fear of failure in one domain, or they've at least used it to their advantage. Meaning that they have gone to the point in their career where a challenge comes up, they take the lead, they move forward, they find a solution, and they don't quit until they get to the other side. And if you're hearing this, that probably resonates with you too. You know what it requires for you to be successful. And the challenge is that you take that same mindset, that same mentality, and you try to apply it to your fitness and health. The only problem is when you have this fear of failure, and you have experienced failure again and again and again in your fitness and health, whether that was trying to lose weight or trying to be consistent or make a positive change with how you take care of yourself, the failure is not just applied to your fitness. Eventually, it becomes permanent. And so what happens for a lot of people is they start to think, I just can't succeed with this. It becomes a part of their identity. And one of the things we talk about oftentimes here at the channel is that when something is linked to your identity, it becomes a part of your everyday routine because your identity influences your habits. And so if you believe you are a healthy person, you're going to do certain things that a healthy person does. Just like if you believe that you can't conquer this fitness goal, it is going to be part of your behavior. Or better yet, it's going to influence your behavior. Now, one of the reasons why it's so important that we actually conquer this fear of failure is because if we don't, it will continue to cost us our health. It will continue to cost us our energy, our confidence, and if not addressed, it could cost us years. And so if you're someone who knows that, hey, life is worth living. Life is not only worth living and surviving through, but it's worth being at my best through too. And when I take care of myself, everything else improves too. If that's your current belief system or something that you know you want to lean into, we have to work on this fear together. And so why does this pattern happen, right? What is the reason why so many people get caught in the fear of failure? Well, there's this typical failure pattern that so many people experience that gets conditioned year after year after year. And so the first step of this pattern is that there's this threshold moment. And so threshold is essentially where you reach your 10 out of 10. Like, I must do something about this. Now, you can think of this as the moment you step on the scale and you see a number that shocks you. Maybe you got blood work from your doctor and that really tied you in and said, okay, I got to do something about this. Maybe it was the way your clothes fit. Maybe it was a picture you got back. Maybe there was just a moment where you realized like something has to change. I had a client one time who said he couldn't bend down and tie his shoes without feeling out of breath. That was his threshold moment. And so threshold moments are really important to hold on to. Right? Because once we hit that threshold, we do want to lean into change. But the problem for a lot of people who experience this repeated pattern of failure, they go to the second point where they overcorrect. And so overcorrecting means you say, okay, I'm going to go after this in an intense way. And so we overcorrect. We decide to go from 0 to 100. And what's great about this is in the moment, we start to get momentum. And the reason why we actually overcorrect on our goal is because we have that little bit of doubt. We have that little bit of worry. We worry that if we don't do something aggressive to change, that fear of failure will start to show up a little bit more. And so we think if I just push and use the momentum I have, if I just push and use the motivation I've got right now, well, maybe this time it'll actually stick. And so what happens is it leads to the third step, which is we start to see progress. You start to see some changes. Maybe you do drop some weight. Maybe you do hit the gym and start to notice some definition or your clothes fit better. Maybe there's some changes there. And this might be for a couple days, it might be for a couple weeks, it might be a couple of months, but it starts to show. And the challenge is that typically the approach that we've taken to get there, we know we can't sustain. And so then the fourth step happens, which is life happens. There's friction. There might be stress at work. There might be stress at family. There might be a change in your schedule. You might get injured. It might be hard for you to follow the diet because you traveled. There's something that throws you off the path. Now, to a healthy person, the thing that throws me off the path, I'm able to adjust for because you know what? I know how to be healthy through every season. But if you're someone who struggles with making those healthy choices, that friction causes you to become step 5, complacent. It causes you to drift to your baseline. And once you start drifting to your baseline, that old story shows up again. And that old story sounds something like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm off track. I can't believe I'm failing. I can't believe I'm doing this again. You feed yourself this crap sandwich of bad stories and disempowering beliefs. And then you hit step 6, where you start to take the failure personally. You start to see it as a part of who you are. And you tell yourself the story, just like, I can't do it. And when you start to tell yourself that story, it erodes your self-trust. You stop believing that you can be someone who can trust themselves to follow through. And even worse, you start to make things worse, right? You start eating worse. You stop putting any effort in. It's this cycle that starts to move in the opposite direction until you hit threshold again, and then you decide, okay, I got to do something to change this, right? And so the key here is understanding that this is a very common pattern. For people who repeatedly fail and fail and fail, they start to move in this direction with less and less intensity. So what happens is you might have done the same pattern maybe every 3 months. And then some point it was every 6 months. And then it was every year. And maybe it's every 5 years now. If we don't catch the pattern today, though, it will cost you years. It will cost you some severe time. And so if you're in the pattern right now, what I want to share with you is there's one fundamental shift that you must make that's going to allow you to break free. And that is that you have to change your relationship with failure first. You have to change the way that you view failure and yourself in relation to it. Because there are so many different points along the journey where we could interject and make a change. But it's not just one colossal failure. It's a failure at multiple different points. One of the things I tell people who want to be consistent is consistency is a decision. You can decide at any given point to get back on track. But if you tell yourself the same story, that because you skipped a workout or because you missed your run or because you ate too much pizza yesterday, you therefore are a failure on this path again, if you allow that belief to take hold over your journey, you will miss months. You will miss maybe seasons. You'll miss years and possibly decades where you aren't actually where you know you could be when it comes to your fitness, your health, and the way you show up for yourself. And so what I want you to see here is that we can build some new beliefs about failure. And in fact, this is actually the best way that we can approach the journey. In the book Mindset, Carol Dweck talks about how those who have fixed mindsets tend to believe that failure is fatal. Whereas those who have a growth mindset tend to see that failure is just a learning opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to see something different. We have to see that when we're inside that failure cocoon and we just feel wrapped up in it, that we get to decide, hey, what am I going to believe and what am I going to learn from this? And so this isn't just some theoretical conversation. I actually want to share how I changed my relationship with failure. You see, when I graduated from college, I was on a tear. At the time, when I was a junior in college, I had lost 50 pounds, won my first bodybuilding competition. I was written up in newspapers. I had all this momentum. And I had launched my first business. During college, I started personally training people. And as soon as I graduated, I went online. And this is back in 2016, so no one else was doing this. And what happened was I had this massive amount of growth. I started to get so much momentum. I moved from a small town in the middle of nowhere of New Hampshire all the way to Los Angeles, California, where I competed in my first bodybuilding competition out there, and I got second place, not too shabby. And what was even better is Lindsay and I were doing it together. So we had all this momentum. We saw how the small town kids were able to move to Los Angeles like a dream come true. And then, even though there were some bumps along the way, we made a personal investment in a mentor, and our business grew even more. Then we got hired as private trainers to go and work with a family exclusively in Dallas, Texas, where I was the trainer for the CEO, and Lindsay worked with his wife, and we worked with their whole family. At 22, I think it was 22 at the time, it was the most incredible experience. I thought, oh my God, like I've got so much momentum on my side. And then I had to pay a learning tax because all the things I thought I was going to go test and try and do, they started to not work. And then we actually got hired to be full-time with that family in Dallas. We moved from Los Angeles to Dallas permanently. And then after about a month and a half, we got let go because of a miscommunication, an error in my ability to communicate with the people we're working with. And so I'm in this position where I'm like, oh my God, my business is failing. I just moved to this new location and I failed. I remember I hired a mentor to help me with the business. That didn't work out. The business I was building just pretty much collapsed overnight. We had about $25,000 in credit card debt. Things were not good. And so I remember just feeling so defeated and depressed. And I was like, man, like I was on such a tear and I just can't get my momentum again. I can't believe I'm failing like this. I was embarrassed. I was dejected. I didn't know what to do. And so I was lucky because I got connected with a coach. And there was this coach who was a mindset coach. And I was talking to him and I said, like, I'm just so afraid I'm going to fail again. Like I've had so many failures. And I didn't really ever listen to the words I was speaking over myself. And he stopped me. He said, hey, Brian, like, do you hear what you just said? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, tell me back what you just said. It's like, I feel like I've had so many failures. I'm just afraid to fail again. And he said, well, Brian, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 23. He's like, okay. Well, a wise man might say that you've just gained some really valuable lessons. And that if you don't change these failures into lessons, you're going to continue to repeat them. And so it sounds like you have to learn from these experiences. That was it. Now, I remember sitting away from that conversation, took a step back, and I thought, wow, that's so important. That's so valuable. And I went back and I looked at all the failures I had made, and I extracted the lessons and I put them into play. And after that, we launched this business, the Fitness Project. We actually got rehired by that family. Fun fact, ended up working with them for a few more months, about 6 months or so, and then COVID happened. It's its own story. But then we were able to get out of debt. We were able to buy our first home. There were so many things that changed because of the lessons that I gained from the failure. And had I not had that single insight, I don't think anything would have changed. I would have stayed stuck. And so what I want to give you today, what I want to give you in this moment, is a moment to assess your own relationship with failure. It doesn't mean you have to change it permanently. It doesn't mean you have to change the parts that drive you, right? When that fear is there, it can be useful, right? It gets you to move. But if it keeps you in the same pattern where you repeat the failure and you tell yourself you're a failure and you stay stuck, well, then the pattern isn't serving you. And so what I'm going to do right here is I want to give you some questions to reflect on. Some questions for you to reflect on when it comes to your relationship with failure before we actually get to the root and show you how to change this. So the first question that I want to give you is really simple, but the question is, what is your current relationship with failure? What is your current relationship with failure? This is the moment where you might want to pull out your phone notes or you might want to get a piece of paper. I highly encourage you to get a piece of paper and ask the question, what is my current relationship with failure? Meaning, how do you or how do I view failure when it happens? What beliefs do you carry about failure and what it means? And when you look back at your previous attempts to change your health, this one's very important. What were those failures trying to teach you? What were those failures trying to teach you? Were they trying to teach you that, hey, one decision doesn't mean that the whole week is ruined? Was it trying to teach you to be patient? Was it trying to teach you to focus on your next best move versus where you just made a mistake? Was it trying to teach you maybe to be more flexible? Stop being so rigid. Was it trying to teach you that maybe the people around you don't have your best interests at heart? What were some of the things it was trying to teach you? Take a moment and reflect on these. If you want, you can pause the video, you can pause the podcast, wherever you're at listening to this, you can pause it. But my encouragement is take a moment to actually think about this, because this is the wisdom. This is your self-wisdom. This is the opportunity for you to learn, and that way you can grow. Okay, so if we have assessed our current relationship with failure, what do we have to do to break free from this pattern? I'm so glad you asked. I want to show you how to actually start to change this and make a substantial difference in the way you approach this long term. Again, so this pattern that I'm going to show you is going to have to be something you come back to again and again and again. The good news is it takes very little effort. Okay, so the reason why you're going to have to come back to it again and again and again is because I guarantee there's going to be multiple moments where you feel like a failure. Have you ever had a day where maybe you started the day in a win and then you felt like a failure halfway through and then you got some momentum again, and then something happened and you felt like a failure again? Have you ever had an experience like that? Maybe it's not a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a couple of days. The point is you got to learn how to recover from failure if you're going to ever overcome it. Part of that is taking total responsibility for the direction you're heading in. But more so, we have to be aware of the pattern. And so the first step to breaking free from this fear of failure is to acknowledge it and own it. We have to acknowledge what we're afraid of. We can't just bury it inside and act like it doesn't exist. For a lot of people, the reason why it's so hard for them to overcome this is because they're supposed to be the people who have the brave faces on. They're supposed to be the leaders. They're supposed to be, the tough ones. And so they don't do well with vulnerability. But if you don't own that, hey, I'm kind of afraid of this, then you're going to have a hard time moving through it. And so the first thing is just acknowledging, what are you actually afraid of? And more importantly, what are you afraid will happen if you fail? Now, there might be some real valid concerns there. Hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to miss out on my kids or my grandkids. I'm not going to be able to be the man or the woman I want to be. It's valid concern. So then lean in. Don't quit because of that. Don't become hopeless. Lean into that. Say, and this is why I have to stay on this path. I don't have to be perfect because of it, but I do need to lean into it. And so the first piece is acknowledge, hey, I'm kind of afraid. I'm afraid that if I do this, I might see how far I have to go. And that's going to make me feel overwhelmed. So really, I'm afraid of feeling hopeless. Okay. I'm afraid that if I don't make this change, then I won't be there for my kids and they'll forget about me. Fair. I'm afraid that if I don't make this change, I won't ever have the relationship that I want because this is impacting my confidence. Or I'm afraid that if I don't change this, or I'm afraid that if I try to change this, it will cost me this, right? These would all be valid concerns, okay? So now we understand, okay, here's what I'm actually afraid of. Fantastic. What I want you to do next is I want you to start to solve the problem. What I mean by that is I want you to diagnose the constraint. Diagnose the constraint. What I mean by that is go back to the experiences you've had up to this point that have cost you or have caused you to fail. And ask yourself the question, what got in my way? What skills was I lacking? What strategy was I lacking? What were some of the things that caused me to fall off track? Was it that I didn't know how to manage stress, or that I have an emotional eating problem? Is it that I got injured? I got in a car accident. Business picked up, but I didn't know how to make small changes. Is it that I had this intense approach and it wasn't something that actually fit into my life? Is it that you were trying to do it on your own? Is it that you lacked accountability? Is it that you lacked support? What was it that actually caused you to fail? An example that I would give you just to consider, some people be like, oh, I ran out of time. I didn't have enough time. Oh, really? maybe the question is, I stopped taking care of myself when I didn't feel like I could work out this much. Or I didn't manage my time effectively. Or, you know what? I had a baby and I didn't know how to make it work. And I got so overwhelmed. It's like, fantastic. Acknowledge what the constraint was. And if there's multiple constraints, that's okay. That's ideal. You can see multiple pieces. But what I want you to do is, once you acknowledge the constraint, the third thing I want you to do is extract the gold. So ask yourself the question, what was this trying to teach me? What's the lesson? What do I need to understand more? And if any of those questions, like if the constraints feel like overwhelming, like I don't know where to go with this, turn it into a question, like time was the problem. The question would be, how do I manage my time in order to make myself a priority, right? That would be the lesson. Like, I need to learn how to do this. Maybe you have the lesson right away, right? For me, the lesson was I needed to manage my finances. That was the lesson back then. The other lesson was I need to do something that makes me feel so excited on a daily basis. And the way I do that is by working out. I kind of lost that edge and I stopped pushing myself. So it's like, hey, when I feel low, I need to go and move. I need to do something that's physical. The other lesson was to meet myself where I was at. Stop trying to be here and start being here and make incremental progress again. Another one was maybe value my relationship. Those were all valuable lessons. Get on the same page with my wife. That was really the key lesson. Those are all lessons that came from my failure. So for you, what are the lessons? What's the gold? Because if you can't extract the gold, you haven't learned from it. One of my mentors says, learning is same situation, different behavior. Because if you were in the same situation, you keep repeating the same behaviors and you keep getting the same results, you have not learned the lesson yet. You haven't gained it. What's great is you can. You have a limited amount of time until you die. But you can learn the lesson. So figure out what's the gold here. You've identified some of the problems. So what's the gold? What's the lesson from that? Step 4 is you're going to create a new system. You're going to create a different approach. Now that you know the lesson, what would you do differently? What might you have to do differently? Do you have to hire someone to help you with this? Do you have to be more strategic with how you spend your time? Do you need to focus on small wins? Do you need to work more on your nutrition because your fitness is dialed in? What would you do differently? What would you design as a system to overcome this? And I would give you this. Focus on one thing. Maybe focus on 2 at the most, but focus on dialing in one system to get momentum, and then you can change more along the way. Again, you have to be able to look at what was the constraint, what did it teach me, or what did I have to learn, and then how would I build a system around this? What would I do differently? What do I need? Right? These are all things you want to walk through because you do not want to repeat the same mistakes of the past. Step 5, really simple. Go test that stuff, right? Go test it. Put it out in the world. See what happens. Do not wait until everything's perfect. If you have, okay, here's how I'm going to start managing my time. Awesome. Put the calendar together. Go test it. Oh, here's some of the workouts that I need to start doing. Go do it. Here's what I need to do differently on my nutrition. Go do it. I need to go get a trainer or a coach. Reach out to the Fitness Project. We'd love to help. The key is that you have to take action today. Do not wait until everything is perfect. I was having a conversation with someone last week who actually motivated me, inspired me to make this. And we had this huge conversation around some of her eating patterns. They were really attached to her emotions. And quite frankly, I was like, hey, I think you might need to go see a food therapist to get some support here. I think that's probably the area you need to shore up. But I didn't want to just leave her, like, okay, go do that and feel hopeless. So I said, here's what I actually think you need to focus on. Start making progress today. Start walking 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. Make those your keystone habits. And she's like, you know what? Like, I could do that. I could start doing this, and that would really make me feel like I was making progress again. So we kind of diagnosed the constraint, which is that she wasn't doing any kind of movement. She had a lot of eating habits that were influencing her as well. But a big part of the pattern was that she wasn't moving. So again, I kind of gave her some coaching on the emotional eating and her relationship with food. I said, this is going to be something that's going to evolve over time. You probably need to work with someone in this category specifically, but also you can start moving today. And this is something you can do today. You don't have to be perfect with it. So again, for you, what I would give you is start today. Do something today. Make the change right now as best you can, right? Because that's how you start to overcome that fear. When you're sitting back and you're paralyzed, you're not moving forward. So the only way to move forward is by taking action, even if it's small. And now the last step of this all is test, learn, and iterate. So you want to be able to measure, like, how well is this working? What is it teaching me? What are my results? And how can I iterate? Because nothing is going to stay static forever. Your workouts in the next month are going to change a month from now. Think of it this way. This video is coming out in the middle of August, which means that next month, it's going to be September. There's going to be changes to your schedule, changes to your kids' schedule, changes to your life, changes to your routine. Nothing is static ever. And so you have to be able to see that and know, like, hey, I have to test, I have to learn, and I have to iterate. I have to be able to try something new. And the more you can do this, the more you can test and flex, the easier it is for you to say, like, hey, what I was doing last week has to change, or what I was doing last month has to change. What I was doing last season has to look different than this season. Again, in order to overcome this pattern of letting fear of failure stop you from making progress, the first thing you have to do is you have to identify the pattern. You have to see yourself in it. Second, you have to learn to change your relationship with failure. Think of it as an upgrade. You have to learn to see that failure is not fatal. There's a lesson, there's gold, there's something you can extract and learn from. Then you can walk through this simple pattern. You can acknowledge it, become aware. You can start to look for your constraints and solve them. You can extract the lessons. You can extract the gold. You can build a new system, and then you can take action to test it. And once you do that, you'll be able to learn. You'll be able to grow. You'll get something different from it. So again, you do not need to stay stuck. You do not need to let this pattern continue to steal your health, steal your energy, and steal your progress. You can implement a change today to move forward. And so a lot of this does require courage, persistence, faith. But more than anything, it requires you to stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to fix it right away. Stop treating your body like it's your business, and know that this change is multifaceted. So, how you take care of yourself can change over time. And the best place to start is today. So again, I hope this is helpful. Let me know what your biggest insight is in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, do all the wonderful things, and now go out and conquer your day. Cheers.